I am big. Did have a little headache coming sickness I had, and honey, even though you're coughing more, feeling better, you have more of an appetite.
Yes.
So all right. Yes, it is. Accept, Mr. We have official paperwork to attend. So that's it. No more. Perhaps you'd like to betake yourself now. I must prepare supper for Mr. Giradeb. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Thank you both very much for your time. Soseki-san will be waiting for us, and I'm going to have to give him an answer. This isn't prison. Did I choose Briar Road by mistake? It's time, Mr. Naruhodo. We must hurry back to the prison. Yes, I know. Let's hail a care... Oh. What's the matter? It looks like something's going on over there in front of the Giradeb's house. I know thee not, old man. Fall to thy prayers. Who are you calling an old man, you rum-looking niminy-piminy? There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Who's this Horatio fella, eh? What are you on about? Excuse me. Eh? What the? Who are you now? I'm sorry, it just looked as though there might be some problem here. And my associate here, Mr. Ryunosuke Naruhodo, is a lawyer, you see. Eh, a lawyer? What? If I can be of any assistance, I'd be happy to help. I'm from Japan, but I have studied English law. Tisk. Fine, I'll be on my way for today, but you mark my words. This ain't over yet. Get thee to a nunnery. What is this guy, like a Shakespeare character?
I guess.
I do hope you're not injured. Oh, fair Eastern maiden, thou art so gentle, thank you. What was that all about? There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. I'm not Horatio either. Forgive the inquiry, sir, but are you a lodger here in the Giradeb residence? Oh, fair Eastern maiden, thou art so right. Yes, I do dwell in this humble abode. Mr. Giradeb mentioned that he had another lodger, didn't he? This must be the man. Do you happen to know the other lodger who lives on the first floor? Ah, yes, a gentleman named Natsumi. Oh, more worthy a polemist in my battle of words, ne'er could there be. Sorry, battle, did you say? Who is the stronger, Hamlet or Macbeth? Mr. Natsumi and I sparred long into the night. I see. I don't fully understand, but it seems Mr. Natsumi and this gentleman are acquaintances, at least. So, fair maiden, so good gentleman. I can tarry here no longer. Fare thee well. I didn't really understand him, but I think he's returned to his room. It seems he's unaware of what's happened to Mr. Natsumi, so he can't really help us. With Soseki-san and that man as lodgers, the Giradeb house is certainly full of eccentrics. Anyway, I'll go and find a carriage. Yes, I'm sure Mr. Natsumi is eagerly awaiting our return. Let's hope we can get to the prison before visiting hours are over. So I did choose prison, it just... probably made more sense to do that than to say we need to go to prison, and then... well, he's spazzy, you know? Oh, it's you. You're here. You came. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. I can't believe you came back. I'm so touched. We are so sorry to have kept you waiting, Mr. Natsumi. Oh no, think nothing of it, relax. If I were a cat, I would purr with pleasure at the company of some fine compatriots. Noble, nurturing, never-failing Nipponese. Oh, now, let's not get carried away. Oh, I quite agree. There's nothing more reassuring than the familiarity of one's native land. Is this Von Zeke's, on the other hand? Oh, no. It is through friendship transcending international borders that one truly appreciates the fact. Such is my belief, at least. Oh, it's you. The miserable, rotten spy, Erlach Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing here? I have no intention of doing anything, per se. Save observing, of course. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? Well, having encountered some curious reading material in that gloomful room, and having unmasked the secret identity of that eccentric pair, I decided I should drop in on my way home to see how our divested friend is faring. Gloomful room? At least your accommodation here offers her window, my dear fellow. In that sense, it is the superior option. Anyway, I must commend you on your taste in books. My day has been a delight and cost me not a penny. Are you? How dare you, Erlach Sholmes? Ugh. I've had it. I'm hunted by spirits in those accursed lodgings. No doubt my luck will be cursed in tomorrow's trial as well. My whole life is bedamned. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? He mentioned that once before, didn't he? That his lodgings were cursed, I mean? And there is much truth in Mr. Mustache's words. What? Cursed is a wholly appropriate description, I would say. For the man's lodgings, and indeed for tomorrow's trial. What's that supposed to mean? Alright, let's ask him about the trial and the lodgings. Mr. Natsumi, what did you mean by what you just said? About the trial tomorrow being cursed? Oh no, why are you looking so grave? You're making me nervous. I was just getting carried away, that's all. I didn't mean anything by it. Oh, I see. That's really agitated him. You don't mean the trial really is cursed somehow? Are you referring to the prosecutor, the Reaper of the Bailey? The Reaper? Oh no, what do you mean? Please, tell me, summarize it succinctly in 16 salient words. No defendant has ever survived the trial in which the Reaper stands for the prosecution, ever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14... Oh my goodness, can it really be true? That was 16 words exactly! Yesterday, Mr. Naruhodo successfully defended someone against the Reaper. But then, after the trial was over, the defendant passed away in unusual circumstances. Mr. McGill did. What? I am impressed, Miss Susato. You have an eye for detail. Actually, the Lord Chief Justice told us. Mr. Sholmes, surely it can't be that having failed to have the accused convicted, Lord Van Zeeks killed the man himself. Oh no, he couldn't have, surely. Ah ha ha! You have such wonderful notions. Sorry? The man isn't a mass murderer, he's a court prosecutor, my dear fellow. Oh yes? Why, of course he is. Of course he is? Then why are you trying to scare me? It could be said, however, that the real truth about the man is even more terrifying than your hypothesis. What on earth do you mean by that? Von Zeeks is a quite exceptional man. However, in London courts of law, exceptional does not equate to winning every case without exception. Ah, that's good. Son looks like he's going to cry tears of joy. As officiates based on the letter of the law, whilst the jury offers public opinion and common sense. It is an excellent system whereby the defendant's guilt is considered from several points of view. However, public opinion in particular is somewhat easily manipulated. Right. Criminals and corrupt lawyers, for that matter, can use it to their advantage. By any means at their disposal, contriving evidence, calling impostors as witnesses, and so on. By such underhand means, those who would want to are able to sway the jury, which means that even in the light of irrefutable evidence, the prosecution can fail. But it means the wrong verdict can be passed. It sadly is from time to time, my dear madame. It is simply the reality of the situation. And that's all right. However, those indicted by Lord von Zieks cannot escape justice. Their fate is sealed. Oh my. Through the adjudication, may see...
You pause?
Sure. Alright, slight delay there. Though the adjudication may see them leave the courtroom with their freedom, within months they all disappear. It is most striking. Disappear? But how? By all manner of misfortune, sir. Perhaps they were trampled under a passing raging fever, or perhaps attacked by highwaymen. Oh, no. All examples of the reality of events here in London, I'm afraid, Mr. Naruhodo. Ha! I knew it. I'm... dead. Dodo. Done for. Doomed. When you said accursed lodgings before, you were referring to your room in Mr. Garretip's house, I assume? Do you mean to say you believe the place is cursed? It's been a year now since I came to Great Britain, but I'd only been in London a week before I started to notice strange feelings in myself. That didn't take long, then. Everywhere I looked, there were foreign faces staring at me, laughing behind my back. I was sure people were talking about me. I started to become nervous about going outside. They were always staring at me all the time, from dawn till dusk. So I shut myself away in my room, but even that didn't help. The fear wouldn't go away. You must have been very lonely having been away from your homeland for such a long time. I've had to move a number of times, most recently to that room on Briar Road a week ago now. Yes, why did you choose there? It seems a little inconvenient. The rent is cheap, I have so little money, it appealed to me straight away. Of course, I asked why it was so affordable. The landlord just simpered and said, "The room is cursed. Oops." He quickly tried to cover his mistakes, but it was too late, so I told him, "If you have something to say, then say it, but if not, don't mention it in the first place." Yes, well said. But it was true. It was all true. You mean the room really is cursed, then? Ever since I moved into that windowless hellhole, my sleep has been plagued with nightmares. I awake feeling as though I've been choked to death. And in my waking hours, people are stabbed in front of me as I walk down the street. I'm branded a killer, thrown in prison. No one wants to know me. I'm surrounded by scary, sinister spirits. If only there was someone, just one person on my side. Can no one find it in his or her heart to believe in me? Really no one at all? To believe? Yes, to believe. Mr. Sholmes. Ah, me, Mr. Naruhodo. Pray, what can I do for you? It's about the case on the SS Buria, if you recall. The Buria. Ah, that case. The one with the snake. Well, yes. At that time, I was the suspect, but you believed in me and listened to my side of the story. And you helped us to investigate. I did I? Interesting. What I want to know is, why? Why did you believe me? I see, yes. You mean because you were a grimly dressed, shady Eastern fellow found with a victim in a locked room? Well, if you like, yes. I'm a little surprised that the answer requires explanation, my dear fellow. It's quite simple, really. You said I didn't do it. But I could have been lying. Surely you must have had your doubts. You must have suspected me a little. I think perhaps you have misunderstood. I neither recall believing in you, nor in that which you were telling me. What? You see, the only things I believe in are those I choose to believe in. What do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? I make up my own mind about what is to be believed and what is not. If I should like to believe in something, I do. The circumstances can hang as far as I am concerned. But I could have betrayed your trust. Ah, ha, ha. In that case, I would have made an elementary error of judgment, nothing more. Betrayal of trust is an overused excuse, in my opinion. Meaning? Whether or not one should trust another is in the final analysis down to oneself. It is a matter of whether or not one can trust oneself. Yes, he's right. He's right, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Whether or not I can believe myself. Defense lawyer is only as good as his faith in his client. And that comes down to how much faith he has in himself. You were so right, Kazuma. Well, my dear fellows, it is time we were leaving, I believe. Already? Visiting hours are over. The guard will be here shortly to escort us out. There is a restaurant near here that serves excellent trout. Would you care to join me? Oh dear, there's never enough time, is there? His eyes twitching. Mr. Natsumi, if you'd like, in the trial tomorrow, I'd be happy to represent you. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. As I said, I only experienced the British courtroom for the first time yesterday, and although the man I was representing was found not guilty, I lost sight of something crucial. Something crucial? What to believe in, the defendant, justice, or the truth? How to believe, even. But I think I finally worked it out. I've decided I must believe in myself above all else, just trust my instincts. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo. And my instincts are telling me that you, Mr. Natsumi, are innocent of this crime. And it's imperative that we prove that in court. Locum, student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I will fight for your innocence until the bitter end with every weapon available to me. So I hope you'll permit me to represent you tomorrow. As I said when we first met, I'd like to entrust my fate to someone who will listen to me in my native tongue. Of course, Mr. Natsumi. It would be fair to say, Mr. Naruhodo, that your mind was in many ways made up from the outset. You merely needed the events of today to fully realize it. Yes, I think you're right about that. It's been a roundabout journey, but I got there in the end. Miss Susato, yes? Will you be willing to stand by my side tomorrow and help me in court? Absolutely. As I said this morning, you may consider me your personal judicial assistant. The shocking events of yesterday's trial still weigh heavily on my mind, but it's time to stop looking backwards. Kazuma believed in me, and Mr. Sholmes believes in me now, too. So it's time that I learn to believe in myself. Soseki-san has no one, he's all alone, so it's my job to help him to fight in his corner tomorrow in the courtroom with all the strength I can muster. Alright, we'll help this dude out.
Okay.
Yeah, you got my cat.
My cat now.
So really,
Really what?
like he was saying that he had lost sight of something, he had to believe in himself, and he's like, I believe he had nothing to do with this and that you're innocent. I guess it's something you didn't really figure out with McGilded. Because I still don't know if McGilded's actually guilty, but there's something seedy going
Something's
on.
wrong with McGilded.
Yeah. Well, I'm not 100% if he actually did it, despite all that, because we don't know. We'll figure it out, I'm sure, but we don't know. Well, I never expected this. Who'd have thought we'd be back here again so soon? We are on a study tour of Great Britain with the intention of learning the country's legal practices. In order to research the latest court procedures here, we need as much court experience as possible. Well, yes, I suppose that's true, but for the person in the dock, it may well be his or her one and only time in court, and it could be life-changing. In which case, treating it as research may seem a little crass. Oh, when you put it like that, you're quite right. Good morning! Ah, Mr. Natsumi, good morning. Oh dear, are you alright? Your eyes are terribly bloodshot. I like that. I love it every time she does that. It's freaking adorable. I obviously think it's more adorable than you, apparently. More adorable than you do. Okay. Let's admire the twitching, and let's go. The early bird catches the worm, as they say here in Britain. Yes, I've heard that expression. But I really don't want to catch a worm. So I tried desperately not to wake up early, but I was so worried I couldn't catch a wink. And now I'm absolutely exhausted as a result. Do all literary people take things so literally? Thank you for putting your faith in us today, Mr. Natsumi. I wish I had 9 lives. My whole future hangs in the balance. I'm too terrified to tremble. Really? Because I feel tremors in the floor. I can't do this. I can't take it. Although, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Yes? I caught a glimpse of the public gallery as I walked by the courtroom. It looked like the opening night of the opera. There were so many people. I had no idea my case was such a notorious affair here in London. Oh, neither did I. Do you know why that might be, Miss Susato? I'm sorry, Mr. Naruhodo, but I have no idea. So that all-knowing look on your face is just a coincidence, then, is it? Don't hide the truth from me. It's because of the Reaper, isn't it? Lord Von Zieks. Is that right, Miss Susato? I purchased as many different newspapers as I could find this morning, and yes, Lord Von Zieks is on the front page of every one. I knew it. Sometime after the prosecutor was dubbed the Reaper of the Bailey, he stopped appearing in court, it seems. It's been several years now, in fact, until the day before yesterday. Yes, Inspector Gregson told us something similar, didn't he? The trial 2 days ago marked Lord Von Zieks' return to the courtroom after a very long hiatus. The trial of Magnus McGilded. Oh, what a harrowing experience that was. I believe that appearance made even greater waves here in the capital than today's. But we wouldn't have realized, of course, having only just arrived in the country. Why is the Reaper back in the Bailey so soon for what appears to be a mundane murder? That's the question the papers are asking, and they are all speculating various answers. Mundane? Mundane? The most significant saga of the century to some of us. That is true. Oh dear, I meant no offense, Mr. Natsumi, but that is how the papers are describing it. Well, lest we also forget the fact that it could spark an international incident. Obviously, the reappearance of this infamous prosecutor has caught people's attention. But there's another blatant similarity with the trial of 2 days ago. Yes, I agree. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, it's you. Me? Well, I suppose that's true. Both times it is you who stands against this legendary prosecutor. It can only mean that you're friends with the Reaper. Please, I don't rub shoulders with Deathbringers. I'm afraid that there's really only one other explanation. It can only be another example, Mr. Naruhodo, of your uncommon bad luck. Thanks for that. Oh, that is just my luck. Why must I be represented by a man of such frail fortune? By the least lucky lawyer alive. Well, let's not forget that it was you, Mr. Natsumi, who asked me to represent you. Yes, it's true that I'm just a student new to London, with little in the way of experience, or skills, or luck, but I promise you this, I will fight your corner until the bitter end, and I will believe in you, Mr. Natsumi. Oh, benevolent locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. You're not alone here with us, Mr. Natsumi. Whatever happens, we will always be on your side. Oh, benevolent non-locum assistant, Miss Mikotoba Esquires. I am in your debt forever. I shall never forget this great kindness for as long as I live. Mr. Natsumi, counsel for the defense. The court session is about to begin. Kindly make your way into the courtroom at once. Here we go. Alright then, Mr. Natsumi, it's time. Let's go. Yes! This is it. My second appearance in a British courtroom. And my second trial against the Reaper. I hope you're watching over me, Kazuma. Because this time I won't let my fate waver. I'll believe in my client to the last. Just like you believed in me. I believe I can do this now. I'm ready for this fight. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is fully prepared, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord.
I don't like his shifty eyes.
Well, when he's shifty, he's
Nervous.
nervous as heck. But when slamming down, but with, like, poise, he's in control. The Nipponese are a truly fascinating breed. Sorry, what? Lord Strongheart has told me all about you. That you are a student who arrived in London 2 days ago, a mere amateur. Do you have a point? Being a compatriot, you feel compelled to try to help the accused, I suppose. Typical Nipponese arrogance. Forgive me, but I do not believe arrogance is an appropriate description. Susato-san. After all, at our previous encounter, the defendant was found to be innocent. Very true, and most fascinating, if dark, trial it was too. The tragic conclusion came later, of course. Here's to the acquitted and his unfortunate violent end. Thank you, counsels. I see both sides are in fine fettle. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are you ready to carry out your duties here in court as impartial members of the public? You never know when you might be down on your luck, but I believe in fair play for everyone.
Oh
okay.
no! That's Bruce Fairplay!
Yeah. Well, I must warn you, I'm rather more ruthless than I appear. Oh well, not me. What you see is what you get. I'm a peace-loving fellow. Isn't that the other guy, too?
No.
Okay.
Shit.
What?! I'm afraid to say, I think it's quite possible that mustached foreigner did the deed.
I'm sorry, you told me to watch this instead of cuss word.
I mean,
I'm sorry for
maybe.
the cuss word.
Come on, what are we waiting for? No doubt he did it anyway.
Oh no.
Sorry, didn't quite catch that. Wait, which guy is he?
He just can't hear. So he's never gonna know what's going on. But 2 people on the jury know us.
Yeah. Very well, let us proceed. Your opening statement, if you please, Lord Von Zeeks. Very recently, Great Britain signed an alliance with a rising power in the Far East. The accused in the dock today is a student from that same land, a certain Mr. Soseki Natsumi. And while our country has extended this foreign student the warmest of welcomes, regrettably the kindness has not been returned. In fact, the student is accused of a most sinister act. Of plunging a knife into the back of an innocent woman who was doing nothing but walking down the street. A knife crime, I tell you from bitter experience, those are the worst. Bloody oath they are! Just look at that sallow complexion and short stature. He's one of those dreadful Japanese. Come on, let's get this over with. With me now, everyone. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, didn't quite catch that. Pray, forgive the discourtesy of smashing my hollow chalice here in this great chamber. It's like the sixth juror, always this weird...
Old person?
Old person. One's knitting and super sweet, but then can be very angry if she thinks she's been had. This guy can't hear. I guess we'll have a mistrial, because we'll only have 5 guilties or 5 not guilties. Allow me to call the first witness to the stand. Very well. Bailiff, lead the inspector in, please. Your name and occupation, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard. Would you please summarize the events of the case for the court, Inspector? The victim is thought to be a young woman in her 20s by the name of Olive Green. I beg your pardon, Inspector. Thought to be. Yes, having been stabbed in the back by her attacker's knife, the victim fell unconscious. That was 3 days ago now, and she's been comatose ever since. What? So they don't even know who she is for sure? Comatose, I see. But her life is not in danger. Fortunately for the Eastern student, the charge will not be murder. Pray elaborate on the details, Inspector. Sir, if I could ask everyone to look at the street map. As I mentioned, the happened on the pavement running alongside Briar Road, a wide thoroughfare for horse-drawn vehicles. It had not long since stopped snowing as the out of the blue, approached from behind by the accused and stabbed in the back. You all right there? Luckily, the young lady's life was spared, and she's currently being treated in one of the city's hospitals. But being unconscious as she is, we've been unable to take a statement from her, of course. This is the case file with everything we know about the victim so far. Thank you, Inspector. The court will accept the documents as evidence, if you please. Alright, I want to see that. What of the weapon that was used? Let's take a look at this first. Young woman rendered unconscious following a stab wound in the back. Olive green female, stout build, early 20s. Pavement of Briar Road was the location on the east side. The reporting officer, Rowley Beat. The victim remains unconscious. Her name was gleaned from her personal effects. Other details are unknown. Apart from the single stab wound from the large knife, no other signs of injury were observed. The assailant was seen running away by the reporting officer and was successfully arrested the following day. Sir, I have that here. It was removed from the victim's back. Ouch, that big thing is starting to make me scared to walk down the street now. With a heavy blade like that, almost anyone would have been able to stab the poor woman. Even the scragged look at Soseki-san, I suppose. A common or garden jackknife, I would say, rather nondescript. Thank you, Inspector. The court accepts this blade as evidence. Now then, what do we know of the motive? Money or valuables, I presume?
Tip's gone.
Yeah. Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo. Just at the tip, a small piece of the blade appears to be missing. You're right. Well spotted, Miss Sato. I wonder, what could have happened to it? Yes, you don't think it could still be lost on the victim, do you? Oh dear, I do hope not. That sounds terribly painful. All checks out. From all we can tell by looking at the woman's possessions, it seems like she's a poor student herself. Hard to imagine she would have had anything much worth pinching, my lord. I see. Well, in that case, are we looking at some deep-seated resentment toward the victim? I'm afraid I couldn't say. Apart from visiting second-hand bookshops, the defendant, Mr. Natsumi, doesn't appear to get out much. At this moment in time, we haven't been able to establish any sort of connection between him and the victim. If theft and grievance have been ruled out as the motive, what reason could Mr. Natsumi possibly have had for stabbing the young woman? Yet you arrested the man in spite of that, in a totally unjustified and heavy-handed way. He sounds so angry. What the heck? Pray forgive the discourtesy of flinging a freshly uncorked bottle into the public gallery, but your words have soured its hallowed bouquet. For it is you, my learned friend, who is being heavy-handed here. What? Scotland Yard does not arrest people without good cause. That should be beyond question. Inspector Gregson, the prosecution calls for your formal testimony. Explain to the court precisely why the constabulary, I would assume, came to arrest the Nipponese student. Yes, sir. You know why he looks so funny? Because his chin looks like it's part of his neck. It looks like his face goes down further.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but he's just fun to look at. Okay. As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was an unusually light fog. Visibility was reasonably good, and there was no one else about but the victim and the accused. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor. Those being a number of old books he just bought. He was on his way home from a bookshop, it seems. It was just a matter of working out who the books belonged to, and we found the bloke to arrest him. Old books, you say? Yes, my lord, I have a photograph here of the scene of the crime taken immediately after the incident. Ah, yes, I can clearly see the books to which you were referring. I will take that photograph and print as evidence, please, Inspector. You Nipponese are a spineless breed, too cowardly to admit defeat, denying everything despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Well, forgive me, Lord Von Zieks, but the defendant is not denying everything, as you put it. What are you doing, Miss Susato? Do go on. Mr. Natsumi has admitted to playing some part in the incident. Isn't that right, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, now you mention it.
I'm gonna get some spray, I think.
Okay. Get your spray, I'll wait. Apologies, it's like she's feeling better, but the cough's definitely gotten worse. I'd like to think things are breaking up, but I feel like if it's not better by tomorrow, maybe we should just see somebody. Because it could be something separate from what she's taking antibiotics for.
That is terrible.
The spray is really bad?
Yes. But it's like instantaneous numbing.
Well, let's see how it works.
Yeah.
Kitty looked out the door as he left. He was like, "Oh, where are you going?"
Oh, yeah.
Alright, ready?
Yeah.
When we visited him in the prison yesterday, he did tell us what... As I was walking along that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I went to overtake her, she suddenly let out a little scream and collapsed onto the cold, hard slabs of stone at my feet. I was terrified. I had to get away from there. So I ran, as fast as my legs would carry me back to my cursed lodgings. A green overcoat? Well, that's exactly what the woman in that print is wearing. Oh my, a photographic print in full color. What will the world come up with next? The defendant has done nothing more than admit he fled the scene of a terrifying incident. That does not mean that he's guilty of the heinous crime of stabbing the woman in the back. There was nobody else there at the time, just the two of them, the victim and the accused. In other words, there was nobody else who could possibly have stabbed the woman. A fact that the accused concedes. Ugh. It seems this cross-examination could prove to be pivotal, counsel. Proceed, please. Yes, my lord. Nothing for it. I have to use this cross-examination to turn the tables here. It's our only chance.
So someone saw it. It's the arresting officer.
Yes. So let's do it. As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was unusually light fog. A light fog, you say? Well, light for London. You could see the opposite side of the street for once. Not much farther, though. That's light, is it? Around these parts, yes. Not something I expect a Japanese fellow like yourself to know, of course. I've read that London is famous for its fog, but in my country, people usually imagine that gives the city a rather beautiful appearance. Tisk, how quaint. Yes, well, it's not something us Londoners lend to romanticize, as I expect you can appreciate. I see. At this time of year, the fog causes a large number of accidents, especially when it's heavy. Sometimes you can't even see your own hand at the end of your arm. Indeed, the other day I was very nearly trampled by horses before I could see the carriage they were pulling. So Susato-san and I should definitely remember to stop, look, and listen. However, on the day that concerns us, the fog was somewhat lighter than usual. A fact no doubt lamented by the accused. Visibility was reasonably good, and there was no one else about but the victim and the accused. How are you able to state that with any certainty? Quite simply, my learned friend, because that is what the witnesses to this crime have told us. Ah yes, Inspector Gregson mentioned the witnesses yesterday, didn't he? That's right. One of them is a policeman, I believe, from Scotland Yard. That is correct, ma'am. Then we must hear their testimony. The prosecution will, of course, call them to the stand, should it be necessary. But wait a minute. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in the middle of winter, it would have been dark already. No matter how light the fog might have been, no one could have seen. I'm unaware of the situation on your tiny island in the east. But here in the capital city of Great Britain, all main roads are illuminated in the night by gas streetlights. Ah, the prosecution believes there would have been ample light by which to witness the crime. Quite. Here in London, for the first time in history, mankind has completely conquered the darkness. Which means we really need to hear those witness testimonies. If I could just get through the fog of this cross-examination, maybe we'll be able to. It seems the counsel for the defense is taking stock. Continue with your testimony, Inspector. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement. From behind, you say? That's right, as you can see from this print. Yes, quite so, Inspector. The handle of the weapon is clearly protruding from the victim's back. And you say this poor woman, Miss Green, remains in critical condition? Comatose, no less? I'm afraid so, my lord. Yes, she's being treated at Bart's. I was hopeful that she'd come round before the trial started so I could take a statement, but it wasn't to be. Yes, that is indeed a pity. It would have been most illuminating to hear the victim's own account of events. Luck is on your client's side, it seems. On the contrary, my client has been exceedingly unlucky. Your force of tone is seriously undermined by those disturbingly wide eyes, I'm afraid. Ugh. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor. Now this, maybe we can get some pictures or evidence.
It might be hers.
Yeah, Mr. Natsumi's belongings. I think you'll find it's all there in the photographic print of the crime scene. Yes, the 3 books on the floor. That's right, my lord. Second-hand books they were, irreparably damaged after falling in the snow, of course. The accused could easily have carried all 3 books in one hand, which means a knife, for example. He's very clever, isn't he? What do you mean? He's made it extremely hard for you to assert that Mr. Natsumi had his hands full with his books. He's managed to close the one avenue of escape we might have had before we even knew it was there. You mean to say that the defendant was holding his belongings as he thrust the knife into the woman's back? That must be what happened, my lord, yes. Those being the number of old books he just bought. He was on his way home from a bookshop, it seems. What motive would he have to go to a bookstore, buy books, and then stab somebody randomly? Yeah. The defendant apparently visits a second-hand bookshop on a daily basis. Yes, so I understand. A shop full of old English literature. I commend the accused on the lofty subject matter of his scholarly attention. The bloke's room was stacked full to ceiling with the old musty books. Can you tell us more about the bookshop in question, please, Inspector? Well, if I must, I'll have to ask you to look at the street map again, I'm afraid. The closest second-hand bookshop to the accused's lodgings is this place here, Bourbon Books. A little place on the corner of Briar Road and Meerschaum Street. As it happens, the accused is currently living in lodgings on the other side of Briar Road at the opposite end, which means it doesn't take a genius to work out the route he would have taken home. Something like this. The local map's information has been updated in the court record. Yes, I concur with your conclusion, Inspector. Okay. And that makes sense, yeah. The defendant would certainly have passed the scene of the crime on his way home from that particular shop. Mr. Naruhodo, I think that what the inspector just told us could turn out to be of vital importance. Yes, I agree. The most important point that the inspector just made being the bookshop's location, name, stock.
What was the name of it?
Bourbon Books. They have second-hand books.
What's the receipt say? Your books. So he didn't go to that store. He went to a different one.
Yeah, that's right.
So the name is going to be of big importance.
Okay. Good thinking, hon. Inspector Gregson, may I ask you a favor? What? Would you kindly add the name of the bookshop to your formal testimony, please? I believe it may be of vital importance. Maybe? Oh, well, you know. I mean, yes. It could be a very important clue. Very well. Not that I can see it being of any great significance, but please revise your testimony accordingly, Inspector. Yes, sir, my lord, whatever you say. Could the man be any more sardonic? He's on his way home from Bourbon Books, a second-hand bookshop he apparently patronizes. Alright, so present.
Look at the date and time.
February 17th.
Yeah.
But your books, which, speaking of which, I thought I had the date on there too. Okay, let's do it.
Objection!
If I could just stop you there, Inspector Gregson. What is it, sunshine? I'm a busy man, you know. This is a receipt that we found in Mr. Natsumi's room. It was issued on the day of the incident and details the purchase of 3 second-hand books. And you found that in the accused room, did you? Yes, but the point is not where the receipt was found, but the name of the shop printed on it. Go on. This receipt was issued from a bookshop called Your Books. Your Books? Y-O-R-E, I presume? Yes, my lord. Mr. Natsumi did indeed purchase a number of books at a second-hand bookshop that day. However, the bookshop in question was not Bourbon Books. What? Inspector, did you know of this other bookshop? Yes, sir. Your Books is another second-hand bookshop not far from Bourbon Books. It's just that, well, it's such a small place. I didn't think the accused would have known about it.
Objection!
But in fact, it is the bookshop which the defendant visited on the day in question. And this receipt proves it. Also, yeah, let me take another look at 445. So yeah, that checks out everything.
Objection!
Yes, for what difference it makes. Whatever the man purchased, his musty book tomes, or wherever he purchased, it makes no difference in the final analysis. Liar, because you're talking about the path he took home. I disagree. I mean, after all, I have the street map here, if that might be of help. Oh, yes, thank you. Have a look at this, please. If the defendant had been returned from Bourbon Books, then yes, he would almost certainly have passed the place where Mr. Green, or where Miss Green was attacked. However, if we take into account the fact that he was actually at another bookshop, Your Books, it may very turn out that he wouldn't have passed the location at all. Could that be true? My, it rather depends on where this other bookshop is, but I do declare it might be a possibility. Is that right, Mr. Lawyer, sir, what you just said? Absolutely, it absolutely could be right. Inspector Gregson, where is this Your Books establishment? Well, obviously we looked into that. It turns out that Your Books... It'd be funny if it's right next to it. It's just here on the corner of Mearsome Street going east. So he still could have taken the same path home, or he could have gone down Calabash.
Well, the other thing that would help is the titles of the books, because we know what he purchased from Your Books and we know what's dropped around her.
Right.
Or we should be able to figure out what's around her.
And there you have it. As you can clearly see now... Oh. I learned Japanese is obviously in training to be a clown the way he regales us with such witticisms. To your future career in the circus.
That's mean.
Girl, you put that glass down now or I'll put it down for you. Oh, dang, girl. I didn't think I needed to spell it out, but here we go. If the accused was coming home from Your Books instead of Bourbon Books, there's no doubt he still would have passed the place where the victim was stabbed. He still could have gone down Calabash. Yes, thank you, Inspector. Ugh. Allow me to reiterate for my learned, if somewhat slow, Nipponese friend. Wherever the man purchased his musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis. Ag! As I suspected. What did I say? I've had enough of this now. Beg your pardon. Terribly sorry. Would you mind repeating that? Mr. Naruhodo, we mustn't give up. What? What do you mean? If the prosecution's assertion is correct, the members of the jury may very well decide that Mr. Natsumi is guilty. Ah, she's absolutely right. We must think. We must consider the assertion just put forward by the prosecution very, very carefully. They claim Soseki-san must have passed the location of the incident on his way home, but Yes, as I said, he didn't have to go that route. The assertion just made by the prosecution is fundamentally flawed. Explain yourself, counsel. Yes, my lord. You can see what I mean on this map. When returning from your books to his lodgings, Mr. Natsumi could have followed the route suggested by the prosecution. However, that isn't the only conceivable route to take between the two places. If the defendant used these streets, look what happens. He arrives back at his lodgings without passing the location where the victim was attacked. Talking back to a clown is a fool's errand, of course. However, I feel compelled to point out that that route is what is commonly referred to as the long way round. Ah. On a cold winter's night, why would any man choose to take a longer route home? Well, the answer is extremely simple. He wouldn't. The accused took the obvious route back to his lodgings and is the obvious perpetrator of this crime. But, aha, yes, I've got it. Obviously, we must ask the man himself. Ask Mr. Natsumi which route he took home. I have already informed the court of the accused's response to such questioning. He claims he has no recollection. Ha! That's right. As I said, the bloke seemed to spend his time outside wandering aimlessly from A to B. That day was no exception. He says he doesn't remember where he was or which route he took home. I don't believe this. I thank you, my learned friend, and suggest that we do not waste any more of the court's time by wandering aimlessly around this subject. Pray, what say you insightful jurors? But even if that's the case... I agree with Lord Von Zieks, wholeheartedly and in every way. What? I don't believe it. Does that mean we members of the jury are completely convinced now? Very well. In that case, I hereby call upon all members of the jury to present your findings to the court.
Guilty. 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 Guilty.
It would appear that the jury's leaning isn't unanimous. Oh, but we can pit them against each other. To the insightful members of the jury, I applaud your brave resolve. You serve Queen and country admirably. Mr. Naruhodo. No, not yet. This isn't over yet. I still have one last chance to sway the opinion of the jury. I have to tip the balance of those scales the other way. I have to turn this around. Somehow. Those are the eyes of Query, not yet willing to give up and die. I like it when he starts pulling up his armband and then, like, smashes his cheeks together and breathes. So I presume you intend to wield your rights again in this trial. Rights of the defense written into antiquated British law that should have been buried long ago. Oh, shut up, Van Zieks. Call it antiquated if you will, but it's the defense's prerogative to carry out a summation examination if it so chooses. Very well, counsel. In accordance with the letter of the law, we shall proceed with a summation examination. Are the members of the jury ready, Mr. Foreman? Of course we're ready. I'm all too familiar with that Nipponese whippersnapper and his Onkiss refusal to throw in his alley. Very well then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will each explain on what grounds you have determined the defendant to be guilty. I hope I pit Mustache Man against somebody, because that guy's fun to tick off. For pity's sake, that little Nipponese oddity already admitted it himself, didn't he?
No.
If he said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why it can only have been the victim? The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in winter. So So the poor woman was attacked from behind, was she? How dreadful. I really don't care. Can we just wrap this up now? I've got work to be doing. Your books. Yes, nice shop, that. But bourbon books? No, not worth a visit. Boy, those were a lot of bad reasons. His reason for guilty is that bourbon books is not worth a visit. With only minor exceptions, the reasons for finding the defendant guilty are all too clear. When the stabbing occurred, the only two people at the scene were the victim and the accused. And the accused himself has admitted to seeing the victim in her green overcoat sink to the ground before his eyes. What if he saw a different person? What if there's something completely different going on? I must say, I would have ample grounds to convict this man already. Oh dear, even the judge appears convinced of Mr. Natsumi's guilt now. Ugh, why did he have to run away like that? And how are we supposed to believe in some phantom attacker that nobody could see? This is impossible. How can I possibly make a case for the defense? Mr. Naruhodo, this is no time for grumbling. If we want to force the trial to continue, yes, I know, I have to turn the tide. I must make the jurors change their minds. Well, 4 of them, at least. Exactly. We have no choice but to forge forward. You have the floor, counsel. Begin your summation examination. Yes, my lord. I just need to keep this trial going somehow, whatever it takes. Come on, Ryunosuke, you can do it. For pity's sake, the little Nipponese oddity already admitted it himself, didn't he? If he said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why, it can only have been him, the victim. What, wait, what'd you say? Why, it can only have been the victim. Oh, who collapsed. Ben wouldn't have gone round the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in the winter.
So you're trying to pit 2 of them?
Yeah, so he admitted it. He didn't admit it. Well, let's press. We're allowed to press. Excuse me, but aren't you... Yes, that's right. I was in the witness stand myself just 2 days ago. Yes, I had a feeling I knew your face, or the side of it anyway. If I remember correctly, you're a banker, aren't you? That's right. After the gold rush down under, I came back to London to work, and it was all going swimmingly until you started fossicking around. Bruce Fairplay was a man of repute. Sorry? Don't think I've forgotten how you treated me the other day. You had me and that young hatter pegged as criminals. Oh, well, you know, water under the bridge. Now there's all sorts of rumors buzzing around, and the police have been badgering me nonstop. If I could turn back the clock... Well, anyway, I don't know about the hatter, but at least I'm in the clear now. And free to make up my own mind about who's guilty and who isn't. Ha, thank goodness. Alright, maybe I might struggle to change this man's mind, given our awkward history. Oh dear, I wonder what's become of Mr. First now. I need to excuse myself just for 1 sec. You too? How about both at once?
Yeah, I'm going.
That's great. Alright, so did you just come back? Because I just came back. Okay, here we go. If he said the woman in green collapsed before his eyes, it could only have been the victim. The man wouldn't have gone around. Okay, you know, I want to press the last guy, because he gave no reason.
Hold it!
Want to see if he can... Sorry. Folded, you said? That's so dumb. No. What I said was hold it. What I wanted to ask was, do you visit your books often? I like the old books they have in there, yes. I enjoy reading them over a nice cup of old tea. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about.
Oh, interesting.
And at what time did you visit your books on the day in question? Well, I was picking up books in there all afternoon, and it would have been just before 5 that I left.
Okay.
And that's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about. He has a green overcoat. What if he was the one who fell?
Okay.
Hey. Just before 5, you say, exactly when the victim was attacked. Are you sure about the time? Oh yes, no mistake there, I remember it well. I'm not about to forget that day in a hurry, not after the dreadful time I had. What do you mean? Well, I was walking down Calabash Road when I slipped on the ice and donked my head. See?
Good job.
It's always worse after the snow stopped falling. That's when it's most slippery. Knocked myself clean out, I did. I really thought my number was up. Wait a minute, let me get this straight. This happened on Calabash Road. That's right, I live in Cornpipe, you see. Heading down Calabash Road is the quickest way for me to get back from your books. Juror number 6, I must insist that you add that information to your formal statement. It may very well be extremely significant. Sorry, extremely sick? No, of course. Him against juror 2.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Ooh, I dig this jury system. It sends a shiver down my spine to hear the members of the jury so convinced. But I can't help feeling that some of their opinions are rather subjective. I agree, it's the irrelevance of what some of them are saying that sends a shiver down my spine. Still, at least some of their assertions don't actually incriminate Mr. Natsumi of anything. That's something. We must use that to our advantage, Mr. Naruhodo, cunningly. Yes, you're right. Let's listen to the jurors again carefully. Okay, so let's see what the guy at the end's saying now. Alright, so it's... Yep, why can only have been the victim? No. Those two statements clearly show a flaw in the juror's reasoning. A flaw? What are you talking about, counsel? Well, juror number 2, juror number 6? My, whatever do you mean, sir? Am I the only one who thinks he's adorable? In his own way. His beard and face are so round. Like, look at his face. I think perhaps the old man didn't hear you. Actually, side note, remember when we covered this on that video game segment I did for work? Professor Murphy said that a lot of times when a series goes from 2D to 3D, it loses its charm in, like, its graphics, right? But Capcom, the developer, has really kept that charm of the first game. And I think it's still there with a lot of the characters and how they look, interact. I think perhaps the old man didn't hear you. Unbelievable. It's not like I was loud or anything. There was at least one fact of which we can be sure here. The bookshop receipt found in the defendant's room clearly indicates that on the day of the attack, he had been to your books and purchased a number of second-hand titles. He then returned home on foot. But the man says he has no recollection of his return journey. That's correct. But what he does remember is seeing someone appear in front of him on the way. Someone in a green overcoat who suddenly collapsed on the pavement before his eyes. Yes, we are all well aware of this. The poor young woman was stabbed, obviously. Can we really be sure of that, madame? My, whatever do you mean? I'm sure you heard juror number 6's account of what happened to him that day. That same afternoon, there was somebody else apart from the victim who was wearing a green overcoat and who fell over on the icy streets in the neighborhood. Oh my. My goodness, you mean... That's right, I'm referring, of course, to hard of hearing juror number 6. Are you really suggesting that the person in the green overcoat whom the defendant saw collapse in front of his eyes was the jolly old gentleman on the end of the bench here with me today? That is entirely possible, yes. After all, the old man has a somewhat similar build to the victim. Well, look at that. My goodness me. Sorry, you need to pee. You need to pee. And crucially, we know precisely where the old man in the green overcoat fell, which is Calabash Road, yes. Therefore, if the person who Mr. Natsumi saw collapsing in front of him was in fact juror number 6, it means the defendant must have taken the long route back to his lodgings. And if that's true, then clearly the crime scene on Briar Road where the woman was stabbed was not on his way home. Oh my!
Also, he's not native, so he wouldn't know what's really faster. And he's
Yeah.
been there a week.
Heck if he knows, yeah. You idiot old man, if you hadn't been so daft to be roaming about there, we'd have boxed this off. If you hadn't been so daft as to be roaming there, like, he should have known better than to be anywhere near there. And really, what were you thinking we're such a befuddling coat? What did you say to me? Is it a crime for the elderly to walk the streets these days? Is it a crime to slip over on the ice? Is it a crime to keep up with the latest styles and wear a beautiful green overcoat, is it? My lord, I do hope it won't cause any inconvenience, but you'd like to change your leaning, I presume? I do declare that I would. I should like to call for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you. And I would too. What? Is it a crime to change your mind, is it? Well... You know who she looks like? That woman from Popeye.
Olive oil?
Yes, olive oil. Or is it just olive?
Olive oil.
Oh, I didn't know she had a last name of Oil, too.
It's olive oil.
Okay. Well done, Mr. Naruhodo. That was wonderful. Well, we've managed to change a couple of minds at least and strengthen our position somewhat. Yes, and it will prompt the other members of the jury to reconsider their stance as well. They'll be asking themselves if their current leanings are really right or not. Now, if only we could just identify one more clue or discrepancy that would make them stop doubting Mr. Natsumi. We might be able to tip the balance completely. Yes, that's exactly what we've got to do. Von Zieks is looking to bring this trial to an early conclusion. That's what we have to prevent by whatever means we have at our disposal. Thank you, counsel. On with the summation examination, please. Yes, my lord. Okay, let's do the, I want to see what that last guy's saying, too. Setting a cat among the pigeons. I'm leaning to not guilty to make up for it. Okay, I want to do this because... That's it? A man's life is on the line here, sir. This will take as long as it takes. Whoops, sorry. Don't get clever. The likes of you wouldn't understand, but a laborer like me can't afford to take time off. If I don't work, I don't eat. And neither do the wife and kids. Oh, I see. That must be very hard. I go to the union every morning to find out what needs doing, and if you're late and the work's taken, it's tough. This time of year, there's water and gas supply pipes bursting left, right, and center. They're after cheap labor to get the roads dug up to fix it. It's a hard slog from dawn till dusk it is. So, you were out digging up the roads on the day of the incident as well, were you? That's right. In fact, if I remember rightly, it was just around the corner from where it all happened, by that old bookshop it was. What? Another coincidence. That's right. Meerschaum Street it was. Meerschaum Street. On the map, Mr. Naruhodo, there are only 3 named streets. Juror number 5, I need you to add that information to your formal statement, please. What's the point in that? Can't we just get this business over with now? Please, sir, it's important. Tisk. Fine, I'll do it. Then. On the day it happened, I was digging up Mearsome Street from dawn till dusk. Okay, he changed it, but I think it might have something to do with him, but...
He would have to go if that street was dug up. Show me the map.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to go that way.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pit.
Objection!
Those two statements are clearly at odds with one another. At odds, counsel. Explain yourself. Please, don't point. It wasn't me, I swear.
This is weird because there are witnesses too. You know?
Yeah. They're witnesses, and two of them. One is the, landlord's wife, and the other was part of your last trial. The only one that has nothing to do with it so far is juror number 2. I just wanted to get this done and dusted. Well, juror number 3? Oh, me, sir? Well, what do you mean? Juror number 5's words just now are extremely significant. Let's take a moment to consider the implications of what's been said on our map of the local area. On the day in question, Mr. Natsumi visited the bookshop to purchase a number of second-hand books. And on the same day, we now know that there were works being carried out on Mearsome Street, making it impassable. Which means the defendant's route home could not have taken him along Mearsome Street and down Briar Road. Oh, yes, of course. Well, what do you think, sir? Well, yes, you can't argue with that, really, can you? We must have had a good 2 yards or more of the pavement up. Every gentleman and gentlewoman that came along had to turn back and go the other way. So the only conclusion is this: the defendant must have taken the longer route back to his lodgings. Yes, I suppose he must have. I suppose that must be right, eh? Juror number 3, you said the following. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, but we see now that he had no choice. Ah. My lord, my judge, sir, if I may. Yes, I don't think in all good conscience that I can say the man's guilty now. Yes, I'd like to see the trial continue so we can get to the bottom of what really happened. What about you, sir? Who, me? He's gonna be harder. Well, alright then. If there's a hole in the prosecution's argument, it should be filled in, that's what I say. Boy, if they weren't jurors, we'd be screwed. Well, that summation examination has concluded with a rather large shift in opinion. The ayes 2, the noes 4, so the noes have it, not guilty they say, which means we no longer have a consensus among the members of the jury. The thing is, though, if we just get 2 of them to change their mind, you still don't have a consensus, right? Like, I guess it's more fun pitting 2 sets of 2, but, like, if you just get 1 of them to say not guilty, you don't have a consensus. Unless, since they already declared guilty, you have to be able to sway the majority of their minds, which maybe that's what they described when they were explaining this to us last trial. The trial will continue.
Objection!
Oh, get out of here. Object to the trial continuing. Could it seem churlish of me to drink from my hollow chalice moments after raising the objection? Only to crush it in disgust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Lord Von Zeeks? It seems I must retract my earlier remark. What do you mean? I mistakenly credited these jurors with intelligence by describing them as insightful. Yet we have just witnessed them falling for a cheap trick performed by an Eastern entertainer. God, he is a xenophobic jerk. Eh? Whatever do you mean? I haven't tricked anyone. Everything I've said is the truth. Indeed, stalwart juror number 5 was undoubtedly repairing the road, as he claims. I believe you said it was a good 2 yards of the pavement, which you had excavated, sir? That's right, it took me the whole day, and they pay me a measly 2 for it. Or 2 pence for it, I think. Now, my learned Nipponese friend, tell me. Do you have any notion of the distance that 2 yards represents? Well, if I'm honest, I have no clue, no. 2 yards is a little less than 2 meters. Less than 2 meters? That's not much at all. In other words, a distance readily vaulted by anyone of moderate vigor. Would you not agree, my stalwart friend? Me? I can't say you're wrong, no. What? And did you perchance erect a sign to prevent pedestrians from passing the site of your works? I wouldn't dream of it. What a waste of time. No coaches would have had a hope of passing anyway. We would just turn any gentlefolk back where they come. Kids just jump right over us all the time. The accused is no gentleman as far as I can see. I have little doubt, however, that he could spring over a 2-yard trench in his meanderings around town. Ah. Is that true, is it? The incontrovertible truth is that the books just purchased by the accused were found at the scene. There can be no doubt that on his way back to his lodgings, Mr. Natsumi walked down Briar Road. Ugh. Crushed in a single sentence. And, old man, cold man, you can talk? You say that at around 5, on the day in question, you slipped and fell on Calabash Road. Pray, was there a suspicious-looking Nipponese behind you at the time? Oh, I can't say I remember. You don't remember? How about a wager, my learned friend? You say it was this old man that the accused saw, but I would lay 1,000 to 1 against you being able to prove it. Arr. Yeah, but you can't prove that it was the woman. You haven't been able to ask her anything. Order, Lord Von Zieks, explain yourself. My lord, if you have such a trenchant argument up your sleeve, why in the world did you not proffer it during the summation examination? I wanted to give this young foreign student the sightseeing experience he no doubt came for. I wanted him to see for himself how the opinion of the jury is so readily swayed. Ugh. But my hospitality has its limits, and they have been reached, I feel. So, my learned friend, today's sightseeing tour of London is now over. What are you talking about? My lord? The prosecution requests permission to call its next witnesses to the stand. Granted, bailiff. Bring forth the witnesses. Its next witnesses. Mr. Naruhodo, do you not remember? We've been told on several occasions that there were eyewitnesses to the incident. Yet remember, one of them being a Scotland Yard policeman. I'm afraid that's likely to be the prosecution's next witness. Alright, no matter who Von Zieks brings to the stand as his witnesses, and no matter what they say, I believe in Soseki-san. I know he's innocent, and I'll keep believing to the very end, until this battle is over. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Also, why don't we save? Since we did very well and did not screw up at all. Constable Rowley Beat, Sa. Nothing to report on the street, Sa. And I'm Mrs. Beat. Patricia's my name. I'm proud to say I'm this young town hero's wife. What's the story here? Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary only the other day. No, it was your husband I was talking about. He seems tired. Hardly surprising. Whilst being an honorable occupation, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world. Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually. Indeed, apart from rare days off, our gallant officers trudge some 20 miles a day, you know. They patrol boarding houses and pubs, collect taxes, survey the street, check that meters are reading true, and they're responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our streetlights. There are a number of items on that list that don't sound much like policing duties at all. I wouldn't just be falling asleep on my feet, I'd have collapsed long ago. But it goes without saying that a policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crimes on his beat.
For the London Bobby is a man of honor. And a man of slumber. On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction, and they witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Beat? That's right, sir. Isn't it, Rowley? Constable Rowley Beat, sir. Nothing to report on the streets, sir. What a great witness he's going to be. Very good. I'd like to hear your formal testimonies now, please. You will tell the court exactly what you saw in the afternoon of the incident. Yes, sir. It was our wedding anniversary, and Rowley was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor, and the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box. It was definitely that Japanese man in the dock. Rowley and I both saw him as clear as day. Clear as day? Foggy. Well, this is an extremely compelling testimony, I must say. Oh dear, the policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified Mr. Natsumi at the scene. If their testimony is true, the alternative course of events that you established in the summation examination will be quashed. It's death knell, in fact, because that alternative was never viable in the first place. What an unfortunate bechancing, and on your wedding anniversary, too. Oh, I know, but I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that. Gosh, the life of a London Bobby sounds very hard indeed. Indeed, however, this cross-examination will be over in minutes. You may well have time to rest this afternoon. What do you mean by that? My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of the man fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it was without doubt the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsumi. And one of those witnesses is a policeman, no less. You appreciate the gravity of the situation, I'm sure. Except that the man's so tired his wife has to do all the talking. Enough preamble. Counsel for the defense, commence the cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord.
It's fine.
I know. I'm just trying to see what the time is. Not 24, okay. Because the game's at 7:30, but there's like over 2 hours. More than 2 hours. Alright. Yes, my lord. I want to press their last statement first. But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you? We absolutely could. Us Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know.
What?
Right. The light from the street lamps was more than enough. And my husband already told you that the fog was only light, didn't he? Ha, yes, and what of the fog? We're famous for it across the globe, I believe, but it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course. Oh, it is. When it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm. Yes, alright, take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about? The constant fog makes our eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for sure and certain that it was that little Japanese man we saw. Can't we, darling? What? Yes. It was the accused, no mistake. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snub nose, unmistakable saw. As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was Soseki-san they saw running away from the scene of the crime. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they say they saw. Mr. Natsumi running away from the scene on Briar Road that day. Yes, I feel the same. So if that's true, where does it leave us? The members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony. Oh no, then what can we do? Is that what he said? Then what do we do? If Kazuma-sama were here, what are you trying to say? I think he would try to find a contradiction somewhere else within their testimony. What do you mean, somewhere else? Their statement about seeing Mr. Natsumi is unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help. But if you can identify some other part of their testimony which appears to contradict the facts, you might be able to discredit them, to make the jury doubt if the pair's memory of the day is accurate. Oh, right. Put simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. If we don't, I'm afraid the trial may reach an early and unfavorable conclusion. One always seems to be up against it. Alright. So let's try this. 2 silhouettes. That's right, they were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction. There was a rather plump figure followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man. That does sound exactly like the victim as pictured in this print, and like Mr. Natsumi. Yes, unfortunately it does. And you're certain that at the time there was nobody else nearby? Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there are streetlights on Briar Road, you see. There's nobody else around at all, isn't that right, my darling? Oh, what? Ah, yes, that's right. Of course, there was a light fog on the ground. See, we never actually heard him say that when she had said, didn't he say the light fog? Sometimes I wish they would put that kind of detail in the game, where if you haven't said that yet, if you haven't pressed him on this, she wouldn't say, oh, he mentioned the light fog, but... Of course there was a light fog on the ground, but Briar Road is dead straight, and you could see a fairly long way down the pavement. And then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other pedestrians... And before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer, please, Mr. Beat. Are you quite sure of what you've just said? Yes, sir. As a copper who spends all day, every day, keeping watch on the streets, I'd swear to it, sir. I'm as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. They're still maintaining there's no one else around other than the victim and the attacker. It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened. It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run. Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsumi, did it? He fled the scene all too convincingly. Thank you. I believe we have a reasonably clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed? All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor, and the other scattered something before running off. Scattered something? What do you mean by that? Oh, well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time, but then when we got closer we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling? What? Ah, yes, that's right, it was some old books. I see, old books. Yes, sir, the culprit had dropped a number of them, all around where the victim lay on the pavement. Indeed, as clearly pictured in this photographic print. That rotten Japanese man did that when he did the deed. Let's not forget that it remains to be established the defendant was indeed the attacker. But we saw him. It was the man in the dock without question, sir. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snub nose, everything. Any more insults you'd like to throw in? That's right, he looked down at that poor defenseless woman with those terrifying, intense eyes, and then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away. I see. This is tough. They seem as though they're telling the truth here. May I remind the court that this unambiguous testimony comes from a policeman and his wife. Now please continue. Yes, sir. Of course, and then went for help. Was it your husband who went to fetch help? No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am the proud wife of one after all. Isn't that right, my darling? What? Ah, yes, that's right. I asked Mrs. Beat to go. I was off duty by that point. But Bobby's never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene.
Very laudable, Mr. Beat. Preserving the scene of the crime is a task of considerable importance. That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box. Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean exactly by the right police box? Depends on a crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat. So I told Patricia the way to the police box for the beat the incident fell under so she could go and report it. I ran there as quickly as I could and asked for help from the Bobby on duty. There's nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know? And thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved, the actions of two model citizens. Oh, please, you're making us blush, isn't he, darling? Yes, sir, what Patricia said, sir. Let's move on, shall we? I didn't really find any contradictions there. No time to change after work, you say? Are you also a member of the police, Mrs. Beat? Oh no, sadly not. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women, children, and the elderly can't even apply. Well, I think you can probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can't you? I think Rowley looks ever so handsome in his uniform. It shoots you down to the ground, doesn't it, darling? What? Ah, I just finished my beat. Pat and I were heading back to the station. I was actually planning on getting changed there. Is he talking in his sleep? This is creepy. Oh no, Rowley, I much prefer you in uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes. Oh dear, that doesn't seem healthy. Kindly adhere to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct? That's right, sir, yes, although I was fit to job, to be honest, after spending the whole day on my feet. Policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm the proud owner of this, I'll serve my city and my queen to the end. What's that now? My warrant card, sir, prove that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir, and for such a noble cause, I cover 20 miles every single day without fail and without a grumble. Because I know that the plodding of my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure. So fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it then. But sir, just on that particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat puts up with a lot being married to a Bobby like me. I want to show my dear wife how much I care. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rowley. Oh, what a charming couple. Their young love is such a joy to behold. If a little over the top, perhaps. And then, kindly describe what happened next. Nothing stuck out, but maybe we have to... well, we have to press on... Mr. Laurier, can I ask you something? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... It seems like you don't believe our testimony. Is that right? Is it? Well, out with it. What? No. Oh, no, it's really not that at all. My husband's a policeman, remember? And I know what I saw. I remember every last detail. Everything. Like... Oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped?
Okay, that's helpful.
I could tell you the names of every single one. I could. Every single one. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is?
Then.
Yeah.
I know what they are.
Yeah. No, it won't do at all. That Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. She uses him like a puppet. He's like a ventriloquist here. Even I decided to forgive him for insulting us. Don't think for a minute that Rowley will. I really didn't mean to cause offense. Please, put your husband's fists down. Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Mrs. Beat. Might that appease you? Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. Wouldn't it, darling? Because then, if they're different books, somebody could have planted those books. I can't even tell you the names of the 4 books dropped. Oh, the 4 books dropped at the scene?
That's a problem.
Let's press her first. Yes, we know that there were books dropped at the scene of the crime, as you say. Those purchased... Yeah. honey. I think she's going for some more spray. Just so you know, she wanted to play and we're having fun, but the coughing just is what it is, so sometimes she has to leave and get straightened out first. Got some water, hon?
I got the ice cubes.
Ah, I got the ice cubes. The ice cubes earlier were helping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait till you feel better. I mean, I'm glad you have an appetite and you're overall, you have more energy and everything.
It's just killing me, though.
But yeah, that cough stinks. Alright, that was purchased by the Q's in the nearby second-hand shop. After I'd been to the police box for help, I decided to have a good look over the area for good measure. I am a proud policeman's wife, after all. I did it for Rowley. And what was your husband doing at the time? Oh, he was lying face down in the snow, getting some well-deserved rest. He works ever so hard, you know, ever so hard, don't you, my darling? Interesting way of guarding the scene of the crime. Well, Miss Beat, seeing as you've regaled the court with the tales of your powers and recollection, would you be so kind as to recount the titles of the books? I'd be happy to. Now, are you all listening? There was The Picture of Monsieur Somebody or Another, and What's in Yearnings, and there was A Meal for Someone, and the last one was definitely The Thing Ummy Something. You see? What were they actually? Hey!
Uh-oh.
They do kind of match. But there's a fourth one she's talking about, and that's interesting. Yes, I see there are only one or two holes in your memory. Oh well, they were along those lines, I'm quite sure. They were indeed books found with titles along those lines, as you put it. Well, what did I tell you? So I think it's very mean the way you're implying that my testimony can't be trusted. Don't you agree, darling? Anyone who upsets my Patricia will have me to answer to.
Whoa.
Dude.
Barbies don't have guns?
Terrifying. Yes, she really is. So, I don't know whether to do the receipt or the picture, or maybe they're both acceptable.
Buy one. But do it where she said 4.
Yeah, here it is. Okay, so...
Show the picture.
I mean, yeah, because she said, oh, they were there. So you're saying that there were 4 books. That's right, I remember all of them. The Picture of Monsieur Somebody, What's in Yearnings, A Meal for Someone, and The Thing on Me Something. A Meal for Some... Now, here's the thing. Which one's the one... Is it the... I think it's the 4th one she mentioned. Yeah, The Thing on Me Something. I don't know what... I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat. But there's a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours. Oh no, what flaw? Simply that at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4. What? Have a good look at the photographic print of the scene of the crime. As you can clearly see, there are only 3 books. But no, that can't be, I saw them.
Oh, I know what it is. You can't fool me. Sorry. It's that big old lump of a dead body. The body's so large her corpse is blocking the view of the fourth book, that's all. Let's at least try to remember that the poor woman isn't dead, even if we're insulting her size. No, I'm sorry, Mrs. Bede. But Mr. Natsumi cannot have possibly dropped the 4 books you described. Why not? Fascinating. And from your short tone, something you can readily substantiate with evidence, I presume?
Yeah, the receipt.
Yeah, the receipt. Evidence. Counsel, you will present evidence to substantiate your claim withdrawn. But you know, it's sad because, like, I feel like if we did the receipt, that would have been wrong. Unless the receipt would have just skipped this part. I don't know. The evidence is right here in the form of this bookshop receipt. From your books. Yes, this receipt details Mr. Natsumi's purchases that day, but as you can see, only 3 books are listed. No! Therefore, Mr. Natsumi would only have dropped 3 books at the scene of the crime. Which means that your powers of observations, madame, cannot be relied upon. So it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, no!
Objection!
He's so angry when he says it. It's plainly evident that in your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned... That it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend. What? What cannot be denied is that these 2 witnesses saw the accused running from the scene. A fact that you know very well you have no hope of disproving. Ah. So you've striven... It's striven, right? Or is striven? To avert tension from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair? He sees right through me. But your plan has somewhat recoiled against you. What are you talking about? It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife and her entirely accurate testimony in every respect. Oh? You see, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely found. But what about the photographic print? It only shows 3 books. Quite right, only 3 can be seen in that print. That print, you mean to say you have a 4th print. Allow me to present another, one that shows the victim's hand. Why is she holding it?
That was at the house when the maid was.
The Lion's Pride. Oh, yeah.
Don't you have something in the evidence about that?
I don't think I do. Or do I?
Go back, go there. What's that put in? No, got it.
Yeah, I don't think I do, but... It's the 4th book. But that wasn't the name of it. The thing ummy something? The Lion's Pride?
Right.
As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso. No! Order, order! There, you see, look at that, look. Yes. It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling? Yes, sir, Patricia's always right, sir. Let us study the receipt for the books purchased by the accused on the day in question. Mrs. Bede, the titles once again, if you please. Oh, yes, of course, the picture of Monsieur somebody or other. The picture of Monsieur Lecoq. What's it, yearnings? Canterbury yearnings. A meal for someone. A meal for Gaboro, in fact. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers the book titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Mrs. Bede's powers of recollection can only be described as exceptional. Did you hear that, Rowley? The gentleman paid me a compliment. Yes, sir. Flawless, sir. Patricia's flawless. Yeah, but let's hear the 4th book again. There are only 3 books on the receipt, and Mrs. Bede mentioned 4. There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly the fourth book is that which is shown in this photographic print. I'm sorry, Counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the fourth book be omitted from the receipt? It's not odd at all, my lord. As the photograph clearly shows, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, it belongs to the victim. But again, the judge, as we've noted, seems more with it. The fact that he's like, but doesn't that seem odd? The victim was holding her own book? I wonder, what became of that fourth book? Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence. You will submit then the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, Counsel. My pleasure, my lord. Second print. The Lion's Pride.
I've examined it.
Yeah. The prosecution rests. Ooh.
Oh, see, that's the fire.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. The book has been badly burnt. You're right. You'd never be able to read it in this state, especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book recently damaged by fire. Why does it seem to raise a red flag with me?
You can present it to the maid.
Let me see. It's a book entitled The Lion's Pride. I'm afraid I don't know any English literature at all, so it wouldn't be something I've heard. Wait a minute. The Lion's Pride? That's strange. I think I have heard of a book by that name before, and very recently, too. And you called that a little bit ago. It's a title I recognize, too, Mr. Naruhodo. I forgot about this book. Yeah, hey, juror number, 4. You should be like, hey, that's my book. I have nothing further to add. What? You seem surprised, my learned friend, but your resistance until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious, longer route to the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in your summation examination, and the attempted discrediting of the witness's powers of recollection in your cross-examination. Futile? I walked right into this, didn't I? You see, everything we've said is true. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat. So, perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty. Or is it the decision you have to make all too apparent already? You have heard all of the witnesses and seen all of the evidence. The trial has run its course. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we are in a terribly precarious position. I know, but if I fight back in the wrong way now, it could very well just make matters worse. Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do you do now?
There's an objection.
Let's object.
Objection!
I'm not done yet. No, my learned friend, it's over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There's no more room for debate. Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but... Arg, I can't think of what to say. If I may, Lord Von Zieks, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point. Your insignificant little Eastern Isle must be a lawless hole indeed, for a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like this. Oh. Aww. I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer. So you will have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant's advice essential and her opinions invaluable. Mr. Naruhodo! One of this land's great guiding principles is tolerance, so the court will hear you, madame. Go ahead, Miss Usato, please. Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What have we all overlooked in this matter that you see fit to pursue further? Well, the court has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished. I see. And you believe this new evidence warrants further examination, do you? Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof we've been waiting for. The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in a moment. And of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what the crucial piece of evidence is and why. So we must take this opportunity to examine the newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible, which we did. This is it. Susato-san has managed to win us one last chance here. I can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord. God, he's evil. Very well. The defense may present one further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into this case and has hitherto been overlooked. The evidence in question is what we can see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. The fourth book found in the victim's hand. We have already discussed the fourth book at length. But it's true, because if that book was from their place, and they were fighting at the exact same time when she set the fire, that book should not be in her hand. Yeah. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Yeah, you haven't. Pursuing this matter further will be a flagrant waste of the court's time.
She's not olive green. What if she's Mary? Mary from the note.
That'd be interesting. I would. Yes.
They're fighting about her.
If
She
she's
holds a lot of cakes.
because we don't know her actual name, she hasn't woken up. So if she is Mary, then the juror might be the guilty party. Ag. Yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur with the prosecution on this matter. When I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that the evidence in question contained a hitherto undiscovered clue. So I must insist that you elaborate, counsel. You will identify this clue at once. Do I make myself clear? Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of the evidence, which means you may very well be on the right track. Yes, I think you might be right. So, counsel, precisely where is the vital clue to this case, which this fourth book conceals?
Got it!
I would ask the court to observe the back of the book in question. Back? What are you... Good gracious. It's been burnt to a crisp. So we have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what is clearly an unreadable book? It is undeniably an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing.
Objection!
Unnatural, you say? And what of it, my Nipponese friend? Oh? Were I to concede the point, if it bears no relation to the case, there is nothing to discuss. So, should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some veiled clue as to what happened that day? Pray, do you enlighten us all? What truth does this charred book hide? A charred book? There's just one possibility here, which I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. Alright, I'll explain my theory. Don't keep us waiting any longer then, counsel. Explain this theory of yours. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage this sorry tome has suffered? Its owner.
Right.
My lord, the burn in the back of this book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner. I beg your pardon? But we already know who the book belongs to. The victim was gripping it in her hand as she fell to the floor, after all. It's obviously hers. The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand has yet to be answered. However, as to the questions of who the book really belongs to and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers. Good gracious! How can you possibly? Very well, I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. I know one who might try to burn us, literally. Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. Tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book?
Take that!
The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who own the house where the defendant has his lodgings.
a certain Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb. The landlords? And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or some kind of fate at work, I don't know, but of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for jury duty in this very courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Garrideb herself. Oh my goodness. Me? I think you must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Garrideb's wife. I'm his maid. Things would be so much easier if you would just drop the pretense. Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you ever seen this book in Mr. Garrideb's house? I would never presume to know all of the books he keeps, sir. This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused landlady, you say? You implicate this hardworking member of the public, you besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable. This is not mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost the exact time as the victim was stabbed on the pavement below, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's house. Good Lord! What sort of incident, counsel? A fire, my lord. Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. The whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a bally thing. Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The bally furniture started going up as well. Worst of it is, I lost my favorite book called The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride. Yeah. We didn't see... And that's the thing we were robbed of in the last case. We didn't see him sweat. Because you know how a lot of times when you get the prosecution, they get that look like, how could this be happening? We didn't get to see that last time. By Jove, the very same title is the subject of this debate. Oh dear me. This is risible. All you've told the court is that a book by the same name was involved in a fire, in which case it would be reasonable to assume that it was burnt to ashes. And entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime. Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without going into details, it appears that Mrs. Garrideb was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Garrideb even amid the flames. Oh, how awful! I can't even imagine being so horrid to the one you love. Can you, Rowley? Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise a finger against me, sir. Had all my favorite old novels in that case, but as soon as the fire got hold of them, that was it. Whoosh, up in smoke. Then my wife started hurling things at me. There was I, back up against the window under heavy enemy fire, incendiary books incoming 10 to the dozen. The man had his back up against the window, and he had burning books thrown at him? Goodness gracious, are you suggesting that the book was thrown through a window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime? And maybe that's how she fell, and she was stabbed later. Just think about it, if a book hit her from 3 stories up, maybe that's what made her collapse. Because we haven't seen her, we don't know anything.
Objection!
No, a thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted the very evening of the incident, and there is no report of the Garrideb's window pane being broken.
Maybe she was inside and stumbled out
Oh,
after being stabbed by that lady.
that's quite true. We also saw no kind of broken glass when we visited the Garrideb household. Is it not conceivable? And maybe that's why she just fell all of a sudden, because she was stabbed and she ran out and then she just screamed and fainted or something like that. But is it not conceivable that the window was open at the time?
And why no one else was seeing?
Yeah, not even remotely. Let us not forget the season and the chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would ever leave a window open in the middle of winter. Does the defense postulate the scenario in all seriousness, counsel? Do you earnestly claim that the book found at the scene was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Garrideb's wife? I believe it's a possibility, my lord. That's quite enough. Must be juror number 4. Well, I hope that everyone can see you for what you are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself a lawyer, but you're just a coward, a mean coward. Real. Claiming there are little tips that the whole neighborhood alight, honestly. Implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for appearance's sake? How could you? It's nothing to do with this beastly case, not any of it. All you've done is sully our family's name. No, I assure you that was never my intention. Dragging an upstanding citizen's name through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ears, that's what I should do. It's utterly unforgivable. Too right. Here we go. How long have we sat here now listening to this Nipponese spouting out his fancy foreign theories? But think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could have possibly stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with the mustache, and he ran away from the scene too. I do declare you're right. It's true. Yes, what did I tell you? Makes sense to me. Sorry, what's that? Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Lord von Zeeks? In truth, my lord, I feel these have been unnecessarily protracted proceedings. But then one must always exercise patience in order to savor the best vintage. No, wait. The mystery of the fourth book still hasn't been... If books are your... Predilection, yes. Whoops, I skipped that. My learned friends, study them on your own time. What, no forgive the discourtesy this time? Ahem, in the case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now state your individual decisions regarding the defendant's culpability for the court to hear.
Guilty. 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 Guilty.
Is 6 going to be guilty again?
Whoa.
Yep. Thank you for that unambiguous response. That's twice now it's over. Mr. Naruhodo, don't give up. Miss Usato, have you forgotten? The battle isn't over yet. You're not suggesting. Of course, the defense has the right to another summation examination at this point. You can still convince the jurors to change their minds. You have one more chance. My lord, the defense asks to exercise its right to a summation examination. You believe you still have tricks up your sleeve? I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. This is no time to be downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong and determined.
You gonna keep playing?
Yeah, I kind of want to do the summation examination. Plus, Van Zeeks is really ticking me off. I have considered the defense counsel's request for a further summation examination of the jury, and I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you may now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it?
Yes, it can.
Dearie me, it was only a little book. Hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. The weirdest answers! Yes, considerably more tangible arguments from all members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find fault in the previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene, and moreover... no one else is even at the scene to commit the crime. I actually do believe he was walking on the street that Inspector Gregson already said he walked down. But your theory of how she was stabbed, I think makes a lot of sense. Or something along those lines. Yeah. No one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it can be argued any other way. That means I'm afraid that during the summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman and how? Those two details are all you need to provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And here, I was thinking this might be hard. You must know how do you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends. Oh, no pressure then. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared, counsel? Oh, yes, my lord. All right, Ryunosuke, focus your mind now. Clearly, the key to the summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid, or should I say Mrs. Garrideb. We have a book that disappeared from the Garrideb's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the two. Yes, that's what we have to find, using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Garrideb and how she reacts, even to the things other people say. Ah, now we have to pay attention to that. Well, let's press him, because he's mentioning her. But what about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? The prosecutor fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see? But you couldn't categorically state that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point of even having windows, huh? Counsel, you will kindly refrain from childish bickering. Somehow I need to show there's an undeniable possibility that the window was open. And because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise. Dear me, it was only a little book, probably life-threatening.
Go press the maid. Because maybe she opened the window to get the smoke out.
Hold it! Hold it!
But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? With flames of love, I'll have you know. There's really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb. Well, he brought it upon himself. It's playing with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Oh, or, well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument must have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Garrideb. You never mind that the point is we're just having a jovial little dispute, nothing more. And I won't have any more of these suggestions that it was anything to do whatsoever with the crime. Right, well, we'll see about that. Well, juror number 5. He doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mrs. Garrideb's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is. That's the thing. If we're going to get her, the game clearly implied that she's going to have a reaction to something somebody else says.
Okay.
You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future's at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. What? I told you already I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some readies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. He's going to say something about his missus that's going to get her. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. Bliss. A situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, do you know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must have blocked it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beat will ever be dragged into the Thames by his scarf.
Don't even go there, Mr. Sato. There must be some way to jog his memory about this.
Maybe he saw the fight.
Let's see. Gave me the sneezes. Let's press him so we can get something else other than a description of... Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Starry, what's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchild baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on the top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not. It was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. It seems that a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhado. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but the candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught and everything went up, the whole place filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me.
Open the window to get it out.
And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold. But how did you catch a cold from a fire? What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then because the whole room filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. Boom! The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave, it did. I caught a terrible cold from it. Put me in the hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I love juror number 6. He's adorable. I knew it was devil worship all along. But something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. Could have attacked the young woman as well as Hiroshi Kazudane. Yes, once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even if in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation.
Old man and the young kid, right?
But he didn't change his testimony, which is interesting. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. Well, let's press her a bit. So, you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such delight in your face, but I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I am a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So I read them in the first place. You see? Modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking, wouldn't you say? And not at all extreme. As I see it, an overwhelming suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony, so despite one or two minor puzzlements, I do declare that the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly. But us modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know. So I'd be only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one. I'd be happy to do that, too, if only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right, I'm glad you omitted rational there. Okay, let's press him. But as we now know, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? There's every possibility that the 4th book in fact belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said? That's not exactly how I put it, no. Well, anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Nipponese fellow. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver's about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I've got nothing witty left to say. Let's see.
Did you press the...
Yeah, there we go. He just changed his... You have to open windows to clear the smoke. Okay. Pit. There we go. I thought he didn't change it at all.
Objection.
These two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again. I told you it wasn't me. What's that you say? Speak up, lad. Speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, but it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open the... Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garretup household, and Mr. Garretup had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke. Oh, my hat!
Excuse me.
Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garretup. Oh, dearie me. What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply that I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? What? I beg your pardon, what are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? Oh, alright then, yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house was on fire? Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. You've managed to establish the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garretup's formal statement. Then yes, the window was open. Wow, they're changing it, but they're still not guilty, so now they're adding some stuff. I'd clearly forgotten, but it's true. I wonder if he'll remember something now that she said something else. Let's see. Okay. You know, it's funny, I can't quite remember. Okay. Jog his memory. So, something will probably jog his memory. Let me save this again. This is a little more, in depth, but I like it. Like, I like it if it's not super obvious, you know? Like, we're actually digging at it. Okay, so... Okay, so let's press them again. The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride, the same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garretup told us he had been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now you come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent man. I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on, as well as you know. I really don't. Maybe if we press her, she'll smack him enough that he will unblock it.
Oh boy.
I barely know. Yeah, there we go. I barely knows I was throwing a book, much less the title of it.
Excuse me.
What is it, juror number 5? You know something? I've remembered what it was, the memory I'd blocked out. Ah. It was listening to what this granny was saying. Brought it all flooding back. Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garretup, or the maid, I'll have you know. That man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I'd just come back home after work. I put my hand in my pocket for the wages I just earned that day, and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. Oh? The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, and I told her straight, I've lost a day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear. Stuck into the wall next to me, it did. About an inch deep. No words, just terror. I could smell it then, you know, that god-awful stench of the Thames. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later if I dare. A woman in rage will hurl almost anything at you. The kitchen knife really brought that home to me. Now you mentioned it, yes, the window was open at the time. I'd completely forgotten that's true. Okay, well, let's press him on this then.
Hold it!
Your wife really threw a kitchen knife at you? That's right, she was chopping meat with it. Had a tidy edge on it, believe me. Still, it's all memories, isn't it? It started with that smile she threw me when we were recording. And since then, the list of things she's thrown at me has grown along with our relationship. There was a cup, then a glass, then a pot, a kettle, a chair, a wardrobe, a cooker, a bath. And things came to a head last week when she threw me right into the Thames. Still, she's not so sweetheart, really. I'm so happy for you. If you want to know what I think this whole idea of ladies first that we're so obsessed with in this country was thought up by some very clever lads who have been tossed in the Thames a few too many times by their wives. That's a very interesting theory. What a terrible thought. On the face of it, this sort of statement just sounds like a really extreme anecdote. But I think it might turn out to be an extremely powerful weapon. A weapon I might be able to use to make the jurors accept an alternative explanation here. Juror number 2. Yeah, the kitchen knife. Sorry. Get some more. More ice cubes, hon? Okay, let's pit him with her, because stabbed, kitchen knife.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection. Good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain, counsel, at once. Juror number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We've demonstrated that the 4th book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garridub's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garridub household to the street below. What's that now?
After all, Mrs. Garrideb could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, jury number 4? What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origin of this book came to light, perhaps she'd had a feeling this might be what happened. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala. As the former of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its rounds out of the house, but what? What was it? I'm really taking a big gamble here. That was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Garrideb household to the scene of the crime was...
Take that!
Jury number 4, Mrs. Garrideb. What? What now? I must apologize in advance for this, but I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you seen this knife before? Ah. Good Lord, Counsel, what on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's back, man! My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garrideb was hurling anything she could at her husband, who'd been backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that. The book was found in the victim's grasp. Are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Huh? Even my missus hasn't got a name like that. Yes, I admit there are many details we don't yet understand, but that's the point. That's precisely why we must not allow this trial to end. Not right now. Oh my. Ugh. Mrs. Garrideb, your answer, please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Thud.
Pass out?
Possibly, my lord. I wish to change my decision. Thank you, Olive Oil. I'm a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, madame. Yes, I agree. Yes, we even got him! I surely didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman? I'd have to agree. Not that I think the granny didn't mind. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents.
Those old guys still guilty.
Old guy's still guilty for now, yeah. We did it. Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. So, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided, and this trial will continue. Take that, Von Zieks. Now then, Lord Von Zieks, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. But what follows is so repugnant it's good for nothing save the gutter.
Who keeps bringing him glasses?
I think he has a stash. If I may, Lord Von Zieks, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourselves better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It already should be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Garrideb household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road. Which means that the distance from the Garrideb's house to the scene is some, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. 14 meters? Oh, that's a little farther than I imagined. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having portentous significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book, wantonly hurled by the lady of the house, traveled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? Yeah, he does that a lot. Pointy-fingered. And did the jackknife follow a nearly identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day with a victim, I think. Even those pathetic, serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Mr. Sato, serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense. Yes, go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea a fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning, and as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadeb, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Saints alive! A cross-examination of a juror? Order, order, order. Well, this is highly irregular. It is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand. And unnecessary. Lord Von Zeeks. There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth in it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Rowley Beat, reporting for duty, sir. Well, good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rowley, my hero, you make me swoon. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. Oh. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. I have no idea if this trial goes on a second day, because it's case number 4.
We didn't talk to that roommate anymore.
Yeah, we haven't talked to those other 2 people. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb. Believe me, a London Bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garadeb house are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my trusty Rowley was there to make sure nothing was disturbed.
Asleep.
Yeah. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Well, this is quite startling. Top-hinged casement windows. That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Ah, yes, I'm sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. I'm sorry, but what exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course, sorry. I found, of course. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's room. Alright, I'll try. So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But as is a top-hinged casement window, it's swung open along the upper edge, you see. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevented opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. No. You see the problem, then? Good, your education in windows is complete. There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've discounted already. That can't be... Did you see that, Rolly? That young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumbled before me. Oh, Rolly, you're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination.
You haven't talked to Olive Green yet either.
No. My lord. Oh, good, another desperate situation. Yeah, there's 3 people we haven't talked to, which I'm really confused about. Let's skip that one. Top hinge casements. Okay, let's do this because he was asleep. Yes, you said that you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer, is that right? That's right, yes. If it had been on Rolly's beat, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course. Don't feel bad, my love. You can be expected to know the location of every police box and every beat. So Rolly told me the way, only I sort of got a little lost on the way. Patricia, my darling, that's why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewitching to me. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, please. So I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes. But like I said, my Rolly was at the scene of the crime, making sure nothing was disturbed. But he was asleep! I was off duty at the time, of course, but a cute Bobby is never really off duty. Sa! I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, Sa. Nothing strange to report on that front, Sa. Nothing to report. That's correct, Sa. I had my eyes wide open the entire time, never looked away for a second. No! No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. I swear to that on the yard's honor, Sa. Really? That seems a little strange. Beg your pardon, Sa. Strange, Sa. Seems altogether regular to me. This burnt copy of London's Pride was originally in the Garrett household, so the question remains, how did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Aha! Could it be a different copy, Sa? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? As we can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, the book was at the lady's hair for the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something about the statement that's not sitting right with me. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her back and how that book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. I'm so sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. I had no right to speak out. What do you mean? I requested the cross-examination of Mrs. Garrett without consulting you, even if the judge did deny me. Oh, I see. Well, I agree with you. We do need testimony from Mrs. Garrett, if we're ever going to get to the truth of this matter. Do you really think so? Well, think about it. No matter how far it is across the road or how that window opens, Mr. Garrett's book found its way to the scene of the crime somehow, didn't it? You're right. And then there was Mrs. Garrett's reaction to me showing her the knife. The woman's hiding something, I'm sure of it. You're right again. We need to use this cross-examination to uncover more clues. We'll get to the bottom of this one way or another, I swear. Yes. All right.
how can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir. And the answer is this. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? I can't say I remember. Yeah, he did. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. That's what the job's all about. And that is why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you a Bobby's good for his word, while rubbing my tired eyes admittedly. Sa! Oh, Rowley, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rowley.
Oh, please.
No, none of this is what I meant. I meant, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garadev? Ah, I see, sir. You should have said so earlier, sir. Yes, well, so could you answer the question? That was a waste of time, then. Absolutely, sir. I will answer it to the fullest of my ability, sir. There's a surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Garadev's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. Before I get into that, sir, just one thing. Yes? I'd very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard. So I hope you'll take back some tales of us London bobbies and how we uphold our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So to that end, sir, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal. But I must warn you, you won't be able to get through without shedding a few tears. Thank you, I'll try. Okay. Well, we got new evidence that's actually important. A policeman must strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat. Item number 2. A patrolling officer expected to walk 20 miles around the beat every day for the furtherance of community relations. Yeah, how can he when he's sleeping on the job? Was there a second page? Item number 1 for regulations. Wait, what was the first one? Oh, principle of policing. Any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. Item number 2. When the crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. I didn't see him do that. Okay, let's... Whoops.
Hold it!
By which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Yes, sir. They're just there to allow a bit of air through the house, you see, so they're restricted as to how much they open. And therefore, anything thrown out of the window from inside the room would simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Here is the location where objects would have fallen. Yes, directly opposite of the scene of the crime, on the other side of the rather wide road. Would it have been so hard for somebody to mention this top-hinged casement thing before? Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garadev's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday. What?
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Sorry. You look well delighted. Is there a particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering, that's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. We were just so lucky it didn't happen on Rowley's beat. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Oh yes, that's Street Briar Road. That's the boundary between Rowley's beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Constable Beat. Oh, yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with interviewing the occupants of the Garadev household yesterday. Their house is on my beat, you see, sir. That really was cutting it close then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garadev household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Garadev's house? Yes, ma'am. pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, we would never have been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But that's the life of a Bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are Bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefits of all Londoners. Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rowley for all his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? That must be it, Pat, my love. That must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Neverholder. I'll take care of it immediately. Pavement where the victim was found lies just outside Constable Beat's beat, the border of which runs down the middle of Briar Road. Well, on the other side, where the victim was, that's not part of his beat.
Right.
Which I feel like it has something to do with something. Now it's my turn, I think. Can I ask you something, please, Mr. Lawyer, sir? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? You're downing us, aren't you? I can tell. What? I wasn't really. I mean, what's she doing? Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as a wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I doubted you. No excuses, I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, Mrs. Beat, I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that. That Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife's word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but my Rowley won't. Duly noted, Mrs. Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder? I know what I saw. My eyes never let me down. My sense of direction is a little off sometimes, though.
Hold it!
Mrs. Beat, nobody is questioning what you've told us. I saw it, I did. That evening, I saw it clearly. That little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back, slinking away from the scene. Ah. And I know what I did see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky. All very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction? Oh yes, well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Rowley. He gets ever so cross. What the?
Excuse me!
Constable Beat, is there a problem? No, sir, no problem, sir. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Well, in a way, sir, yes, sir. I was just remembering that the same thing happened that evening is all. You mean Mrs. Beat lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine, but she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone a good 15. Oh, Rowley, you're such a tease. But the reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Really so romantic. He saved up for it with farthings and hop pennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I'd forgotten all about it until just now. Had you, my darling? Oh yes. But that was just between us. No talking about to anyone else, darling. You have to promise. Really? Oh. What was that all about? Constable Beat looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight, Mr. Naruhodo. But I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Mrs. Beat about the bouquet. Mrs. Beat, this bouquet you just mentioned, I'd like you to add details of it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. What happened was, I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while.
Hold it!
You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. Oh, I was so upset. When we ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back, I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. It was in a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice at first. And then you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on. Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again, but the funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, it was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Mrs. Beat, the victim is not deceased. I was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably. That's right, silly me, I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. Although, I'm going to blame the bouquet this time. I can't think how it got there, I really can't. So the bouquet somehow moved from one side of Briar Road to the opposite. Curious indeed. Isn't it? But the worst of it is, I forgot to pick the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose Rolly bought me, with that change from the gutter he spent so long collecting? By bouquet, do you perhaps mean this sorry solitary rose? Oh, yes, that's it. That's the bouquet Rolly bought me for our anniversary with old bits of change he found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Lord Von Zieks, where did you come by this flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garrideb household. In front of the Garrideb's house? Although it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be of no relevance to the case since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Or was it a throughfare? I think it was throughfare. Oh, thank you, sir, thank you. Can I have it back now, please? No, I think for good measure this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. Oh. The shock of seeing the stab victim caused Mrs. B to drop the rose where she stood. But it's a symbol of our love. I want it back after the trial. Do you hear me? I want it back. Good grief. Rest assured that I shall do my very best not to forget, Mrs. Beat.
Why are they hiding it, though? Did he steal it?
Who?
Mr. Beat.
Steal a bouquet? He didn't hide it. He gave it to her.
He told him that's our secret. Don't tell, Palmers.
Let's press him on this again.
Hold it!
Nothing to report. So far everything's the same. Well, I feel like it has something to do with the last statement just based on what Naruhodo's saying, which is something doesn't sit right with that statement. I forgot if we pressed on this.
Hold it!
Yes, you said you went to a nearby police box. Yeah, you did. Yes, we did. That was the oh please. Thing is, shouldn't she have... They say it wasn't disturbed, but that rose was dropped by the victim. So something was disturbed. I think. I mean, I could be wrong on this, but I feel like...
claim, Constable Beat. There was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene. But that cannot be. What? What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with a policeman assigned to that beat, the bouquet you had dropped at the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby. Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road to where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meager bouquet, if a single sorry bloom can be so described, no doubt it was blown in the wind across the street, back into the gutter where it belongs. Meager? But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to that on Scotland Yard's honor. But the bouquet belonged to me. It has nothing to do with the case. That's why Rowley didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way around. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Garridub's book. Mr. Garridub's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out of the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat's bouquet should have been dropped here at the scene of the crime on the east side of the street, but in fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garridub's house. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless somebody deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? The way you're talking, it sounds like you think my Rowley's done something wrong. Don't listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says, wittering on about books and bouquets. Why should we care? It's nitpicking, that's what it is. Oh good, Mrs. Garridub's come around. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garridub, but deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime is a criminal offense. It's called, tampering, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it, for a very subtle but compelling reason. Tampering? You've barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend, who would possibly have a cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Yes, there is someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all testimony points to that one particular person. Counsel, I must demand that you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you saying is responsible for tampering with the scene of the crime? Are we saying it's Garridub, Mrs.?
What would be her motive to do that?
Well, because that's the thing. If there was a book that was from her house, tampering with it would have been bringing it back, I would think. But... and he couldn't have tampered with it because if he got his damn book, he would have just kept it.
Right.
I don't see where Herlock Sholmes would. I don't see why Patricia would. But this is... she's the only one I can think of. Let me try it. No. There's only one person who could have done this. Do you intend to share your internal monologue, counsel? Sorry, my lord, I was just taking a moment to get things straight in my head. And for that moment of wasted court's time, you will pay the price. Ugh. Is it me, or are things getting more strict around here? What you were thinking is right, Mr. Naruhodo. There is only one person who had the opportunity to tamper with the scene of the crime.
The constable.
It has to be the constable, then. Yes, I thought so. There's no point overthinking this. There's really only one other option. Yeah. I need an answer, counsel. Who are you saying is responsible? I don't know why, but
Because he said don't talk about that bouquet.
yeah, I don't get why Rowley's being like this. Obviously, there's only one person it could have been. Constable Rowley Beat, it was you. What? A policeman? A member of Scotland Yard? What nonsense! Why would my Rowley do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. No Bobby works more tirelessly for the people of London. Mrs. Beat, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. The 15 minutes that you were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. You're making it up. It's all nonsense. It's all lies. What about the Japanese man with the whiskers? I bet it was him. He did it. If that was true, Constable B would have seen him do it. Oh. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Well. First, you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very... You claim the crime scene was tampered with, but there's only anyone would commit such a reckless crime to hide something. That's right, he's right, but my... So why would we have anything to hide? It doesn't make sense. You've offered no motive for this alleged tampering.
I know what it is.
Until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. What do you think?
He moved the body across the street so it wouldn't be in his beat so he could take her to dinner.
Oh my god, what a dumb reason. Not dumb that you're thinking it that way, but for him to do
He
that.
didn't move the bouquet in the book. He moved her.
He moved her, yeah. Wow. And she... Yeah, because she wouldn't have known which side of the street it was on. Oh boy. Constable B had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the scene of the crime. That's the key to this entire affair. Mr. Naruhodo, have you managed to solve this mystery? Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you are mistaken, I'm sure I need not point out that your reputation as a lawyer will be irrevocably damaged. Whew. But with that stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for this alleged tampering. Yes, my lord? Constable Beat's motive for tampering with the crime scene was to hide...
Where the bouquet fell. Well, it's kind of where the bouquet fell and where the victim... I would go with victim.
Okay. Yeah, it is, because he did the good slam, where the victim fell to the ground. That's what that Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What? Where the victim fell? You mean where she... Wait, hold on. You mean where she was attacked? We told you at the very start, didn't we? On the pavement on Briar Road. We saw it happen, remember? It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everybody had been led to believe, but in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? What? I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, Counsel. If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know, my Nipponese friend. Where are you proposing that the crime actually took place that evening? Here. I mean, it could have happened here.
Outside your window.
Yeah, like right here. But that's on the opposite side of the road. I don't understand. She wouldn't know. She's bad with directions. On the evening in question, Mr. Garridub's book fell directly down from the open window above, and your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself. Good gracious.
Objection!
Perhaps she hadn't been listening to the ample testimony the court had heard, but these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was the typical London fog on the ground.
When you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid, that was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, that's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in the print, the victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything, in fact, to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road. Extraordinary. But the constable overlooked one thing. What? What did he overlook? The bouquet, I presume? Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Von Zieks said it wasn't noticed until the morning as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously, which is why it was only the bouquet that was found in its original position on the pavement on the west side of Briar Road. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond, Constable Rowley Beat? Oh, he's not tired. He's just looking down. Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important? Oh, Rowley, it isn't true, is it? What that lawyer said is all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know. I had a dream, a terrible dream. All the things I did that night. Everything come out, everything exposed. Only it seems it wasn't a dream at all. Good golly! Oh, well, he is tired, but I thought he was feeling guilty. Order, order, order. What on earth is the meaning of all this? Oh, Rowley, why? Why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse is a criminal offense, isn't it? Wishing the victim dead should be one, too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London Town. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this. For damaging the Yard's reputation, for everything. I have a possible explanation. For one, in that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman. Oh, shut up, dude. And yet, Lord Von Zieks, it is this foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matter thus far. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Counsel for the defense, if you please. Yes, my lord. Now then, I think you had better show us some evidence. At once, my lord. Let's see.
It's the beat thing that says that you have to work what falls in your beat.
Yes. Yes.
Bushi provided to you himself.
Yep. Thank you for that, dude. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from. Human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions. What gives away the motive? Well, okay, the rules of conduct.
Well, hold on. Okay, that's right.
I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land, and I have only just arrived from Japan, which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I've learned that, though honorable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens of his beat in all kinds of ways, there's no doubt that the young Bobby is charged with a great deal to do each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special how? On account of this bouquet, my lord. Oh yes, it was our very first wedding anniversary. Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife, and was so looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal, when he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When they saw that shadowy figure through the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of them, what must have gone through the man's mind? But just on that particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. B puts up with a lot being married to a Bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Aha! Constable Beat, is that or is that not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, it's alright. So that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat. Oh. Exactly. To summarize, the incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Goodness gracious, Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you've done? It was the first time I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could be lurking somewhere. As we ran over to the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned on me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight of all nights? Why? It's a copper's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then when I opened my mouth to speak, it just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat, so you'll have to go to the police box that covers it, turn right along Mearsham Street, and then... And she's bad with directions, so she didn't notice the difference. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Constable. I just wanted, just that one night, to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Rowley. Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined, and so you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction, just across the street to the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under the neighboring beat's care. You see, I thought, well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see. I beg your pardon? Well, of course he did. Otherwise my Rolly would never have left the poor woman on the freezing cold pavement. I see your meaning now. But God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. I know, Rolly, that was all my fault. I should never have dropped it in such a dark place. I'm so sorry, Rolly. Can you tell us, Constable, how many books did you move from the one side of the road to the other in total? Oh, 4 it was. Yes, sir, definitely 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsumi, and the 4th being the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garrett household, of course. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? When all the others were scattered haphazardly around, I mean. Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. That's how you found it? What do you mean? When we first went over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book, so when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. You're sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh, yes, sir. No doubt about it, sir. Interesting. We're further implicated Mrs. Garrideb on this one. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However, which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who'd done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it all across the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it. My lord? Yes, Lord Von Zieks. I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir, what will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him? For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Please don't punish my husband. This was my fault. It's because I'm always moaning at him for coming home late. Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired. Alright then, my love. One last thing, Constable. Sir? Let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant they may appear. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson in your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Never again, sir? You mean to say... Leave now. This trial is not yet over. Sir. Well, quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that? Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here, principally that the accused, Mr. Suseki Natsumi, is the only person who could have possibly committed the crime. No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already. Lord Von Zieks, is this true? Very well. Name the person if you will, and if further investigation is warranted, then the prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing. You will name the other person who could have done it.
Joan Garrett.
Yeah. The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again, my assistant made the same request earlier, in order to finally reveal the truth about this case. It's imperative that we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garrett. Me? Oh, dearie me. That request has already been denied. But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garrett, answer me this. What do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you were enraged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garrett. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited, and to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looked out over Briar Road. Well, what of it? You threw the book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open top-hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garrett. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before? I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? And anyway, the man over there and all that regalia said members of the jury needed to testify, didn't he? Conveniently, yes. No, I have no recollection of saying that at all, juror number 4. Oh. Make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madame, let the truth come out. But that's just a common or garden knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know? What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying, please, Mrs. Garrett? Now, you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. You hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, the poor woman. So yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you're going to insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife if that's what you think. Come along now, chop chop, do your worst. Well, Mr. Naruhodo? If I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror.
Oh. The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Von Zieks. I'm going to have to testify? Juror number 4, as I'm sure you will appreciate having observed it with your own eyes today, witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even be aware. Oh, dearie me. So I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garrideb. And mark my words, in this court of law today, we shall extract the truth.
7:20.
7:20? Oh, the game's going soon. Do you concur, counsels? I think it's a good place to end. Boy, we've been playing a while.
Yeah. I have pee too.
But it's been an interesting case, so no regret there. Oh dear, yeah, 3.5 hours. Well, until next time.